Hello viewers and welcome to yet another commentated match of Warhammer 40,000 Conquest. My name is Mitch and I am the Hive Tyrant. Today I'm pleased to present you with another match between War Master Sam Mann playing as a rather janky version of Eldorath Starbane up against Joel or Dr. Thought playing as Barzul the Hatebound. Once again, Joel is on an undying quest and endeavor and plight to try to prove that there's something behind our upcoming Chaos Warlord Barzul. Barzul himself is a 0/5. The reaction is after a unit takes damage, you can transfer it onto the Hail Barzul, and then as soon as he's bloodied, he transforms into a 3/11. Looks as though both of our players decided to mulligan their opening hands. Of course, Eldorath, wherever he shows up, he's going to be able to exhaust one of our Chaos units, and in assessing Sam's opening hand, we've got a couple of copies of Gift of Isha, that resurrection type effect. We've got a Starbane's Council, which is going to synergize fantastically well with Eldorath's exhaustion ability, and some sort of sub-theme we have going on in Sam's deck is this Iyanden Wraithguard, which happens to have the Spirit trait. Therefore, if we happen to see a copy of Mighty Wraith Knight interplay and exhaust all non-Spirit trait units at a planet, the Wraithguard is of course entirely immune to that effect, and if a Gift of Isha returns a dead or discarded copy of Mighty Wraith Knight into play, that could be an absolutely superb means of exhausting all the opposition. One of our new Decree of Ruin units here, we have a Wraithguard Revenant. Whenever Sam would win a command struggle at a green strongpoint planet, you can put that unit into play from your discard pile or hand instead of taking the planet's card or resource bonuses. So absolutely fantastic. And in our Chaos player's hand, we've got a couple copies of Bloodied Reavers. One of those is in play at planet number 2. It's a 2/2 for 2 with the command icon, +2 when a Warlord is present to its attack value. We have an Archon's Terror. We have Rograk's Bloodhand, the Great Devourer, unique new Chaos unit. One command icon, 2/5 with Brutal, and it's got the Bloodthirst specialization, so whenever a combat round occurs and one or more units are destroyed at its presence, at its present planet, you double its attack value, and considering Barzul is a unique unit, that would be absolutely fantastic to use Barzul to enable a No Mercy to cancel out an opponent's shield card so that Rograx can deal out some monumental amount of damage that basically ignores an enemy's attempt at shielding entirely. But on Sam's side of the table, we've got a copy of Wild Rider Squadron with a promotion sitting at planet number 2, opposite a promoted copy of Bloodied Reavers, so that's 3 command icons against 3 command icons. The Wild Rider Squadron itself is a 3/4 unit that, as a combat action, can shift to a different planet, so it could easily move over to Aatrox Prime, and that would allow Sam to win command at the following round at that planet. And then we've got a copy of Rogue Trader sitting at planet number 5 for Barzul, and then a copy of Starbane's Council positioned at planet number 1. So something to keep in mind is that if Sam wins at a green strongpoint planet, he can simply opt to put this copy of the 0 command icons Wraithguard Revenant into play at that location. Looks like Eldorath is going to show up at planet number 5. He'll end up tapping out this enemy Rogue Trader. He'll cut off that 1 resource bonus, and he'll generate an additional 2 cards for himself. Looks as though the Starbane's Council could potentially win our first planet, a Tricon planet, entirely uncontested if we don't see this Archon's Terror put into play, and then Barzul is going to show up at planet number 2. The problem with this is that the Wild Rider Squadron, if it attacks, note it does not have initiative, it'll be able to deal 3 points of damage, and unless we see a 2-value shield card used so that the Bloodied Reavers only take 1 point of damage, then Barzul's not actually going to be able to take any of that damage for the Bloodied Reavers, because it has to be dealt damage, not just assigned damage, and then Karnath is going to be able to trigger the battle ability of any other planet in play. But Sam ends up getting a grand total of 3 cards, no resources, relative to the 2 cards and 2 resources here for Joel. He got a Heretic Inventor and Slaanesha's Temptation. The attachment here increases the amount of resources required to play enemy units, and Heretic Inventor is a 3/3 with a command icon for 1, and your opponent decides where you end up deploying that unit. Combat action of the Wild Rider Squadron relocates it to planet number 3, and looks as though we do see the Starbane's Council manage to capture planet number 1, Iridial, entirely uncontested. That's the healing planet, so it's not actually going to be doing anything beneficial for Sam. And Karnath is going to be triggered, so our planet number 3 is Aatrox Prime. We could see, well, I guess that wouldn't actually deal any damage to Sam, so we could see Planum relocate a unit, like this Bloodied Reavers could be moved. Actually, I spoke too soon. I kind of forgot that this Starbane's Council is indeed in Sam's HQ, so that's going to take one, or perhaps not. No, it looks like we're actually going to see Karnath trigger Planum, and I would imagine, therefore, okay, that's going to save the life of this Rogue Trader, so definitely an interesting play, but I am not one to judge, so the Rogue Trader's not going to be killed by Eldorath. Eldorath himself is going to be able to trigger Eloith, so Sam will have the opportunity to take a peek at the top 3 cards of his deck, add one of those to his hand, and put the remaining 2 on the bottom of his deck in the order of his choice. Sam, it looks like, drew another copy of the Wraithguard Revenant, an Ion Rifle, +3 attack value attachment, and a copy of the signature support, the Aleatok Shrines. Whenever a unit moves to a planet, an Eldar unit anyway, you exhaust that support in order to ready that unit. That works for units moving alongside your Warlord. It works for after a, say, Wild Rider Squadron were engaged in a battle here, it would attack, then you'd move it to planet number 3, then it could ready and proceed to, you know, participate in a subsequent combat. We see an HQ phase. Sam now has our initiative token. Both of our players draw 2 cards. They generate 4 resources. Sam got a copy of Bealtan Guardians, 1 cost, 2 command icon army unit, and he also drew a copy of the Mighty Wraith Knight, which could be absolutely fantastic. Note, it does cost 6 resources, but it's 2 command, a 5/5. When it enters play, you tap all non-spirit trait units at its location, and that does synergize perfectly well with these Gift of Isha. We'll just need some way to actually get this in Sam's discard pile, because it's going to cost an incredible 7 resources thanks to this copy of Slaanesh's Temptation being played to our current planet number 4. So our Chaos player has yet to deploy any additional units during the HQ phase. He came across a copy of Incubus Warrior and Khorne Berserker. We've got a copy of Heretic Inventor that's going to be put out onto the battlefield. Looks as though it's tentatively going to be positioned at planet number 5, but Sam may well choose a different destination for it. That's definitely the downside for that unit. Sam could possibly end up winning at as early as Aatrox Prime if he takes Karnath. If he takes Aatrox Prime, Sam, it looks as though, and I believe I perhaps misspoke earlier. I think I said something along the lines of Sam had 7 resources, but I think I was looking at Joel's little UI, so my apologies for that mistake. Interestingly, we see a copy of the Aleatok Shrine put into play. We see an Ion Rifle affixed to Starbane's Council, and if at any point it has the opportunity to attack an exhausted unit, it's going to be doing so for a staggering value of 8, which is pretty much absurd. And just doing a real quick look down our lineup of planets, planet number 3 here, we've got 2 command icons against 1. That's going to be a potentially 1 command struggle for Sam, and should that occur, that could be a copy of the Wraithguard Revenant being put into play in lieu of his winning that 1 card and 1 resource. But let's see how things end up unwinding. We've now got a copy of Incubus Warrior positioned at planet number 3 by our Chaos player. That's going to allow him to have 3 command icons to quite conveniently trump the 2 command icons associated with that Bealtan Guardian, so it wouldn't be the worst idea in the world for Eldorath to touch down on planet number 3, but he's definitely going to be incentivized to show up at planet 4 just to try to get rid of this copy of Slaanesh's Temptation. But definitely War Master Sam Mann has plenty of experience playing as Chaos. Kugoth and Zereth Eldorath or both, so I would imagine he knows how to deal with a Slaanesha's Temptation much better than I. But for our Barzul player, looks like Sam has at this point passed. We've still got a copy of Khorne Berserker that we could see. We could see Archon's Terror used to alter combat slightly. And then on Sam's side of the table, really the only tricks up his sleeve are these Wraithguard Revenant, the Mighty Wraith Knights, and the Gift of Isha. So I think certainly once Sam gets Barzul bloodied, he'll have a lot he can do to try to overcome that 3 attack value, 11 hit point Warlord. And note of critical importance is that that Iridial is already gone. Interestingly, we see that copy of Khorne Berserker being played to planet number 1, and that is a hell of a lot of units all at one location here. So I can only imagine that Barzul, he might be showing up to planet number 5 just because planet number 1 already has so many units on it, but it's such a tricky balance. You're going to have to, you know, kind of juggle when do you want Barzul to be bloodied. But in any case, Eldorath is going to show up at planet number 2. Barzul is going to show up at planet number 1. That's going to be this copy of the Bloodied Reavers exhausted by Eldorath. It's going to be able to be outright obliterated by this copy of Starbane's Council, and I can only imagine that our Wild Rider Squadron is going to continue moving down the line of planets here. But that's going to be the command struggle at planet number 2, won by Eldorath, and planets 1 and 3 are going to be instead won by our Chaos player, and we have the added +1 resource there of a Rogue Trader. So looks like a copy of Warp Storm, which is always nice to see, kind of a nice area effect, 2 damage to all units that don't possess attachments. And then we also have a copy of the signature army unit, Barzul's Cleavers, now sitting in the hand of our Chaos faction player. He's got 3 resources, and look at all these cards in Sam's hand, but no resources with which to play them. Looks as though he is definitely struggling in regard to command. He did come across a copy of the command phase friendly Vashia Trailblazer, but it looks as though Eldorath is kind of in a tricky position indeed. Looks as though we've got a call out for actions, nothing on part of Sam. And it's going to be completely up to our Chaos player to potentially just win planet after planet. If he wins 3 planets in a row, that'll be the game for him. Sam's earliest victory condition, presuming he lets this first planet here disappear into the void, and indeed the victory condition for both of our players is going to be our current planet number 3, which will be Planum. So let's see how things are going to wind down. Barzul is going to have a hell of a lot of exhausted units showing up at the following combat. It's not going to be very wise for him to show up at our current planet number 2, just because the Wild Rider Squadron and especially the Starbane's Council are going to be absolutely able to blow him to pieces. They could easily destroy the Heretic Inventor. They could send Barzul the Hatebound packing in a single blow. They could obliterate the Khorne Berserker and the Bloodied Reavers. A lot of nightmarish stuff to see, but of course Archon's Terror is a thing, as is Warp Storm. And so are a number of other effects, but looks like we're actually going to see this copy of Starbane's Council retreat, or no, I guess actually Karnath is going to end up causing that Starbane's Council to have been routed. So interesting choice, but I guess if he's going to do the first planet bullying thing, that's definitely not the worst idea in the world. It's just a bit of a shame that this Starbane's Council, upon, you know, returning to that planet, is going to be able to be readied again by the Aleatok Shrine. But we've got a copy of Archon's Terror that's going to be banishing that Wild Rider Squadron. The Bloodied Reavers at present are going to be able to attack for 4. Eldorath himself is only going to be able to threaten 1. We've got a couple 1 shield value cards, so the Bloodied Reavers could stick around long enough to potentially deal out quite a bit of damage to Eldorath. And let's see how exactly things end up unwinding here for Sam. So the battle ability on the line is Aatrox Prime. It could potentially deal out 1 point of damage to all of these Chaos faction units. And of course, Barzul's ability is not going to be able to trigger while he's not at a planet. So it looks as though at the end of a combat round, neither of our players decide to retreat. We've got a copy of Warp Storm discarded as a shield, and therefore the Bloodied Reavers are going to have the opportunity to take a swing of 4 at Eldorath. But I would imagine that Sam is probably okay with depleting his opponent of shield cards, especially things like Warp Storm. Okay, interestingly, we see a copy of No Mercy used as, not a shield card, but for its intended effect. That's going to be that copy of Gift of Isha discarded, and therefore that's going to be 4 points of damage successfully dealt out to Eldorath. So is Eldorath going to push his luck? Yep, looks like Sam is going to decide to stay with Eldorath. He's got another copy of Gift of Isha as a 2 shield value card, and therefore he knows that he's not going to be able to be bloodied by his opponent. There's not going to be another copy of No Mercy played. Looks like Joel is trying to, bluff. He decides to keep his unit at that planet, but Eldorath is going to be able to take a swing and kill off that unit, and in addition to that, Bloodied Reavers being destroyed, that's going to be Aatrox Prime being able to trigger, and that is the Incubus Warrior and Rogue Trader going to be potentially killed off, and indeed they are destroyed. So that means the following round, Sam is going to be able to win at Planum. That'll be an additional card or resource, or should he choose to do so, he could put into play one of these copies of the Wraithguard Revenant. Definitely an appealing option there, a nice alternative option, but we see our HQ phase. That's going to be 4 resources and 2 cards for each of our players, Void Pirate and Heretic Inventor. For our Chaos player, our new 5th planet is the random card discard planet, the Green Barless, and for Sam, he came across yet another copy of the Wraithguard Revenant, as well as a Warlock Destructor. So I can't help but think in the future it may not be the best idea, perhaps it's just bad luck of the draw, but 3 Wraithguard Revenants seem like perhaps a little bit of overkill, and Sam certainly has a hell of a lot of great units, but not a lot of resources with which to put those into play. But we do happen to see a copy of Warlock Destructor positioned at planet number 1. Note that at present our players both have at most 1 planet type icon of each kind, so therefore it's really anyone's game at this point. This first planet bullying train is going on, and if Sam can at some point start to accrue a bunch of resources, he's definitely going to be able to, leverage a monumental amount of firepower up against his enemy here. But we've got a copy of Void Pirate now sitting at planet number 5. We've got a reasonable number of resources for our Chaos player, but at present he's only looking to generate 3 cards from winning at Barless, and what exactly is Sam going to see? Barzul might show up at planet number 1, but I could also see him showing up at Planum, just because we're going to want to block off our opponent's victory condition. Here we see that copy of the Heretic Inventor being played. It's going to be up to Sam to figure out. Okay, looks like it's going to be Barless. That's actually the perfect position for that unit. If Sam is basically going to forego that planet, you might as well dump that where it's completely irrelevant to either player's earlier victory condition. So great play by Sam, perhaps not the best use of a resource on part of our Barzul player, but Sam, he's still got this copy of Slaaneish's Temptation in play. I guess if Sam can manage to block his opponent from winning at Planum, and then he could maybe send Eldorath this turn to Elowith just to get rid of that copy of Slaaneish's Temptation, that could work all right for him. And it looks as though we're actually seeing as though you're almost forcing Sam's hand. Like, now that we've got this copy of Barzul's Cleavers positioned at that planet, Eldorath could show up at Elowith, he could exhaust the Barzul's Cleavers, Starbane's Council could arrive alongside, the Aleatox Shrine could... It doesn't even necessarily have to ready that unit. If we wait until the beginning of a combat round, it would allow Barzul's Cleavers to retreat, but either you could let it do that, or you could just completely obliterate it. Interestingly, it looks as though Eldorath is going to show up at planet number 2, so the Aleatox Shrine is exhausted to ready Starbane's Council. This Slaaneish's Temptation is going to be staying in play, but that means Sam is going to be winning at Aatrox Prime, and if he can manage to secure Planum, then that could be the game for him. So he's got this Bloodied Reavers, a 4-2 to overcome. He's got a 3-3 as well as a 2-4 Brutal to get rid of. Dr. Thought is going to end up accruing a grand total of 5 cards. And this is just absolutely ridiculous here. So it looks as though Sam is going to end up drawing a copy of Banshee Power Sword. That's a fantastic kind of a 1-2 combo with which to, discard the Mighty Wraith Knight and then use Gift of Isha to return it to play to potentially, win him the game this following round if everything goes according to plan for him. So it looks as though he drew that combo piece at just the perfect time. Sam ended up getting 1 card, 1 resource at the first planet, and then instead of winning at the second planet, he's decided to put a copy of the Wraithguard Revenant into play, and there is no time like the present because he's going to need as much attack power as possible in order to kill off all the enemy units here. So, very nicely done by Sam. He's going to naturally end up winning at the first planet, which happens to be Aatrox Prime, and therefore that's going to be 1 point of damage dealt to each of these enemy Chaos and Dark Eldar units. So Barzul could absorb each and every instance of damage, or otherwise we're going to have all of these units damaged individually. Looks as though we erroneously assigned a point of damage to promotion. I guess that's what you get for, holding shift, or not shift left click, but just selecting everything. But like a proper Sir, Joel ends up removing that point of damage from the promotion. So absolutely fantastic. I always appreciate seeing a nice tidy board state, so it's going to be up to Barzul. Either he's going to attack or he's going to retreat. Looks as though he retreats, and now it's going to be up to Eldorath to just absolutely go bananas and lay waste to all these opposing units. Eldorath, quite curiously, decides to retreat. I'm not quite sure what is behind doing that as an action. I'm trying to rack my brain in regard to what possible effects are that could have hurt Eldorath. And I can't think of any effects that would target him apart from maybe a Warp Storm, but Joel clearly has no resources. So the Wraithguard Revenant is going to take a swing of 3 against the Heretic Inventor, and God, I really can't help but think it was a mistake to retreat Eldorath like that, but oh well. The Bealtan Guardians could potentially kill off the Bloodied Reavers, but if we see a shield card discarded, why not use Eldorath as an additional source of damage against the Bloodied Reavers? But regardless, it looks as though the Bloodied Reavers are outright killed by that Bealtan Guardians, and that's going to be Starbane's Council attacking for an incredible 8 against that already wounded copy of the Khorne Berserker. And now, check out that planet. Sam already has 2 blue technology icons, and with this Khorne Berserker outright obliterated, looks like we see a copy of Promotion discarded as shields, and yeah, it looks like that was maybe a little bit of a mistake there. Or are we perhaps... Okay, no, I was wondering for a moment if we were seeing a take-back for the Bloodied Reavers, seeing that the copy of Promotion discarded to spare that unit, but no, that's going to be Starbane's Council attacking for a monumental 8. I guess even if it wasn't attacking with the assistance of the Wild Rider Squadron, it still would have had the opportunity to swing for 5, and the discard of a Promotion would have been insufficient to preserve a Khorne Berserker, which only had 3 hit points remaining. Even the discard of a Slaanesha's Temptation or Tzeentch's Firestorm would have been insufficient to do that. Very interesting choice. I suppose Planum is going to be using its action to move the Wild Rider Squadron over to this planet Elowith, I guess just so Sam could win command at that planet and then use his combat action to shift back over to Planum when is best to do so. So I suppose there's no reason not to redistribute his units in a sense where he can win as many command struggles as possible. And during the next round, I can only imagine that at some point we're going to see the Banshee Power Sword, perhaps affixed to this copy of the Warlock Destructor, and then we'll see the Mighty Wraith Knight discarded just to give a unit an ephemeral +1 attack bonus for 1 additional attack, and then Gift of Isha will be used to return the Mighty Wraith Knight into play. But the obvious problem here is planet number 1 is currently the victory condition for Sam Mann, and note, at present, Barzul Barzul the Hatebound is not bloodied, and therefore if he shows up at planet number 1, he's going to be a 0/5 Warlord, and as soon as he does end up bloodied, even though he'll flip over to his 3/11 side, he'll be entirely unable to contribute to the battle at that, decisive planet. But we've seen our presumably last HQ phase of the game. That's going to be 4 resources and 2 cards for each of our players. We've now got a copy of the Banshee Power Sword affixed to this copy of the Warlock Destructor, which I believe cost 3 when it was first put into play. I believe this is the first time that Sam has had to pay 1 just to basically pay the forced reaction deploy phase upkeep on that card, and it's going to be up to Joel. What exactly does he want to do? We've got a copy of Slith Mercenary that he could play. He could do Rograx Bloodhand, but that unit is going to be basically just exhausted by Eldorath. And, I guess he decides to put out a copy of Barzul's Cleavers, but that too, it's a 3-cost unit, which is going to be handily exhausted by Eldorath. We could see the Warlock Destructor potentially kill it off, depending on how many cards Sam is willing to discard. And if you check out his hand, he has an absurd amount of cards. If he wins a command struggle at the first planet, which, spoiler alert, there's practically no way he's not going to be able to do so, instead of drawing 1 card, generating 1 resource, he'll be able to put a Wraithguard Revenant in play. So even though Sam definitely struggled in regard to early game economy, he's definitely making up for it and then some now. Or, I guess he's technically not, but he's still doing just fine. But now we've got a copy of Rogue Trader played out at planet number 3 by our Chaos player. It's going to potentially be able to generate 3 resources for him unless Eldorath touches down on that planet, which we may well see, just so that way Dr. Thought might end up with a handful of cards, but have no resources, and it looks as though Sam is actually not deciding to do that. A Warp Storm would not be sufficient to kill off his present units, so he's probably not too terribly concerned about it. But all the same, Sam is going to win the command struggle at the first planet. Of course, he decides to put a copy of that Wraithguard Revenant into play instead of picking up that card and resource that probably wouldn't do him much good. Note, he's got 2 resources. He's got that Banshee Power Sword. He can discard a Mighty Wraith Knight. He's got the Gift of Isha. Things are looking all the way bad for Joel. They're looking basically hopeless for Barzul, even though he ended up coming across 3 resources and 3 cards. He's got 3 total resources. He has an Archon's Terror. He could banish this copy of Starbane's Council, but would you look at, all of these things at Sam's disposal, there's no way that Barzul is going to be surviving this one. So goodbye, Starbane's Council. Your 8 attack value will be missed. But I happen to miss a card in Sam's hand. That's a copy of Nullify, which is going to cancel the enemy Archon's Terror. And there you go. Joel ends up calling out GG, so good game. There's absolutely nothing he could do at this point. A single attack from Starbane's Council could have threatened to deal 6 points of damage to Barzul without the discard of the signature attachment. That would have been a bloodied Warlord. He'd have been sent packing from that planet. The Warlock Destructor could have dealt basically a ridiculous amount of damage. Sam had 8 cards in hand, so the Warlock Destructor could have potentially attacked for 11, or it could have attacked for 9. We could have, well, I guess 10. Then we could have seen Gift of Isha recur Mighty Wraith Knight into play, so just absolutely absurd performance here on part of Sam's deck. And unfortunately, once again, Barzul fails to come out on top, so be sure to let me know in the comments what your thoughts are about Barzul as a Warlord. Do you feel like he needs more help? Like, what could there be to make Barzul a more prominent Warlord? What do you think of Sam's rather unconventional drone and spirit trait heavy Eldorath deck? But regardless, let me know what your thoughts were of these matches, of these Warlords in the comments. But, once again, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, be sure to subscribe to this channel if you've not done so already, or if you are already subscribed, as ever, I encourage you to share this content, as the more players there are that end up exposed to these videos, the more people may witness Conquest, they may give the game a try, they may someday join our living card game community, and of course, the bigger our community is, all the stronger message we stand to send to Fantasy Flight Games, telling them to continue to support this fantastic product. If at any point you'd like to get in touch with me, I would encourage you to do so through Facebook or on Twitter, and if you ever feel so inclined to help support the Hive Tyrant channel, I would be absolutely honored were you to make a donation or contribution to my Patreon. But once again, thank you so much for watching, and as always, be sure to check back in again soon for much more Conquest LCG content to come.